Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another YouTube video. Today we're going to be talking about the big update that's coming with utility and a few agent changes. Nothing is set in stone yet as we're around 2 days early to this update, so all the leaks and kind of like the stuff with truth to it is coming out because it's so close to the update. This isn't like theory or like randomized stuff. But about a week ago, okay, is when kind of this whole craze started, if you haven't been paying attention, where there were some rumors and people were kind of just putting it on Twitter that they were going to take away refresh utility, and initiators aren't going to have any rechargeable utility, and you're only going to have one, and the only way you get it back is if you get 2 kills, just like a dash or just like a nade on raze, right? So this was kind of where we were about a week ago, and I have Coach Mini on the screen here. Removing a refresh utility when information cycling is core to the strategic identity of Valorant ain't it. This game is probably the most gunplay focused it has ever been, and having less tools to deal with 4-1/5-0 gameplay and untradeable agents like Yoru, Chamber, Veto will be bad. So I agree with the take. I think that at the end of the day, if you dumb it down and you make utility useless, or you put certain characters that have utility in like uncounterable positions, so like he listed there with like the TPs, it's just going to be broken and it's not going to make any sense and it's just going to be kind of crap. So before we had the info, this is where we were. If they were to remove the rechargeable utility, again, I'm on the same page here where I think it'd be a really bad idea, but we have it now confirmed that they aren't going to do that. So that's what we'll segue into now with patch 11.08. Initiator signature recharge times will be increased from 40 to 60. Okay, so obviously in the image here, we see Breach, Sova, Teo, Fade, KO. Okay, 5 out of the 7 there are actually going to be able to adhere to that. The stun and all the darts, the missile, or sorry, the missile's not rechargeable anymore. So no Teo. I meant 4 out of 7. 4 out of 7 of them will be affected, and the other 3 won't. So mainly a nerf to your initiator recon. Not sure if this is a thing where they're trying to like incorporate the flash initiator more, because the flash initiator is by far the worst role in the game, whether we're talking competitively or in ranked at all. It's completely dead and it's worthless. 40 to 60 is really going to make this game much harder in terms of being able to work. And what we're going to see is we're going to see people limit testing comps like Veto, Chamber, and even Yoru, where you could just be in a random spot on a random off angle and you aren't going to be punished because there's going to be less utility in play to be used. And even if they were to use utility on you, you being able to TP and counteract it is going to have way more value than before, because they're not going to have it anymore, like a drone, or they're just not going to have it, for a minute, which is an abundant amount of time. This is going to be affecting clutching. It's going to be affecting post plants and retakes. It's going to be completely different the way that you're using the utility. So, coming from their stance, I do wonder what the idea here is, because I've been kind of known to be a little unfair to the devs, but I do think that this is kind of like a lazy change. I think there have been a lot of things in this game that get implemented or buffed or nerfed to where what it shows me, as someone who mainly comes from playing Blizzard Entertainment games, is that the devs aren't actually playing the game. They don't actually know what they're doing. I don't really care about how high ranked someone is or not as a dev, but the fact that like this is a thing is kind of like problematic. And there's been history in the past before about changes like this where it feels like they don't really know their game. And the reason I call this lazy is because I feel like this is just a band-aid, just some little simple change or fix that you can make that's going to have a great shift. Like, this is a very low effort thing, changing a timer of something, but with this timer being changed, it is going to have a huge change on comps, strats, the way people work the map, the way people play the game. Obviously, we're talking about a competitive setting. Ranked, you're really going to have your still, your 20 to 30-second round time. People are interested in going slower, but this is our introduction here. So not only are initiators getting touched, but we have Omen here as well. I personally believe that Omen was in contention for the best character in the game. Obviously, when Yoru was there, it completely primed out on that like 7 ult orb time. He definitely was, but you know, with the nerf coming through to him, it wasn't horrible. But you know, I still think that Omen was the best character in the game. Um, Dark cover cooldown increased, so now you're on a clove smoke timer. Paranoia travel distance decreased while speed increased. So a little more targeted and less like smothering and OP. I think that that is partially valid because I do think that the paranoia again is one of the best abilities in the game, and I think having big stopping power utility really does like make an agent like disgustingly insane, because that's what I think about Waylay right now. I think that the Waylay hinder ability, the saturate, that's the best ability in the game, and that's a partially why the reason that Waylay is like such a good character right now. Paranoia near sight changes, where enemies who are nearsighted can now see further. So you have 5 to 7 meters. So that number is a pretty small change, but you know, at the end of the day, we're talking about 33% there. So that's a pretty big change in terms of like the paranoia. It's not as oppressive anymore, where as soon as you get hit by it, you're pretty much dead. You can actually maneuver around it now, especially if you have like smokes or cages in the sight. So this is a huge change, and I think this is a good change. Um, this will kind of kill him. Not really kind of. It will kill him on maps where there are other options. But he is so good and the other controllers are so bad that like they needed to make him a little less viable on every single map in the game, if they want to see some variety. I was hoping to kind of see some controller buffs. There might be some more coming out, but at the end of the day, the fact that Vito was released and another controller wasn't, again, shows like where they are in their own heads as like developers. Where I don't even know why you would do that. How lazy can you be to literally make another Sentinel that has Chambers ability? Like I'm like seriously offended by that, that they can just like put that slop out and everybody's just gonna, you know, be okay with it. People are voicing their opinion and saying that they're not, which is a good thing. But again, at the end of the day, like that's just actually crazy to me. Now Chambers just, you know, he's not irrelevant because of the changes that are coming through. But you know, why do we have two characters that function the exact same? It's just lazy. It's crap. But the Omen changes overall good. I think that the controller role was in a pretty bad spot when it comes to variety. And here's your visual of like the near sight nerf. So you can see like a lot more. I can just tell by that picture you can see a lot more. Viper nerf coming in. Instant decay when touching or smoke reduced from 30 to 10. So I feel like this is valid. Viper has gotten these like chips in nerfs, just like kind of being like chipped away at like over and over and over and over and over again. Obviously we had like the most OP form with the abundant amount of fuel plus double molly plus the ult duration. You know, that was prime Viper, like literally the best agent in the game by far. Now definitely getting knocked down on the rating list here. The instant decay, it isn't a thing that like made the character picked, in terms of like fear factor and respecting the character and the utility. Definitely does like bring that down like a little bit, like for me, something that you're like much less scared of now is like pushing through those smokes, or you know, when you're mollied, being able to go forward and not just instantly die, right? But I think that that's also valid because it is important to like shake up the meta in that regard when these characters are being picked on every single map in the game. I do believe that it's not the best thing in the entire world to nerf the best characters in the game, but actually be like buffing the other ones and you know, reworking them, whatever it is. Agents that are completely useless, like Phoenix, for example. You could argue Brimstone as well. Um, but again, that's just kind of like how I feel. Sentinel changes also coming through. Cooldowns increased on destroyed utility from 45 to 60 seconds. So pretty punishing now to lazily use your utility and have it broken. We might see much less aggro utility being placed. So on Haven, if you can imagine a Cypher instantly using his camera bottom C, you know, when he does that and it's broken, you know, it is like a little different. Like at 15 seconds isn't like killer, but it is pretty long. It is a pretty big change. Again, 25% there is like the number you're working with if you're looking about the percentage. Health decreased on breakable utility, so it's going to be easier to break stuff. Okay, this is going to increase spamming. When these things aren't 3 or 4 bullets, it's going to increase spamming. Something that we saw with Killjoy, especially, obviously with Deadlock and Sage, is using your utility literally like a teammate that you can trade off of. When someone's breaking your deadlock wall, your sage wall, you can peek and kill them. When someone's breaking your killjoy turret, you can peek and kill them because they're actually committed to a fight. They're using multiple bullets. They're, usually standing still, spraying at it, and it's really good to peek and kill that sedentary target. But now with this being much lower, that might go away, and it might make the Sentinel role a little different. Debuff durations decrease to match systematic changes. I don't even know what that means, but yeah, Sentinel changes coming through as well. Interesting. I'm not sure how I fully feel about it. I don't necessarily think that anything was too hard to break. If I'm trying to like look at all the characters right now, most of it is like pretty much like valid. Sensor, alarm bot, trip, camera, all one shot. Vice Thorn is like 2-shot. Chamber trip, 1-shot. TP 2-shot. I mean, the only thing that has health is like the turret. I think it takes like 4 bullets, and then both walls. So Cypher is getting a nerf. You're going to be able to hear his camera when you get close to it. Usually placed in a high place anyway, so don't really understand that. Cypher's trips have been updated to provide more information towards the player. So I guess it's a little more of like a clarity thing than anything. So I guess I take back the point of like a nerf, but at the end of the day, it's not a buff. So just a change, like it's listed there. Interesting. Neon changes, can sprint longer, but regenerates fuel slower. So punished for kind of like being lazy or making a bad decision. I think that's fair. Relay bolt concuss duration reduced from 3.5 to 2.5. Very good. Very good. Neon is a very broken character. Was more broken, obviously, back in the 2G era, where a team that shouldn't even have been in the playoffs of the event went on to win the entire event by abusing Neon and having someone who was just so OP and just so broken that the player was completely enabled and literally looked so good, and they got into franchising through that. So I think that the Neon Stun, again, like I referred to with the Waylay Slow, is like an insane piece of like stopping power, and when you have that stuff, you are broken. So with that being changed, you got to be a little more punctual and like less lazy with that, and you actually have like a smaller window to capitalize on it, which is a good thing. So it's a good nerf. Yoder changes. Fake out and blind reduced from 2 to 1.6. Okay. Fixed off-screen flashes to behave the same as initiator flashes. Okay, so you can't do sky flashes anymore. So that's a huge nerf to someone like Eggster. He has a lot of sky flashes that are so high up on your screen you might not even see them, and they still blind you. Yoder can no longer flash or set up his clone during his ult. That is a massive nerf. Okay, this agent is dead. This agent is effectively dead. The reason that this agent is going to be played is because of the initiator changes, but he has been gutted now twice, and this is like really, really punishing. Your flashes are less prevalent, and you cannot combo in your ult anymore. So that's going to be a thing where people who are trying to copy Eggster are really going to be punished when they don't have the sensibility on how to get a kill. It's still not going to be impossible to get a kill. You're going to go up against people who are just like not paying attention or don't know what to do against a Yoder ult. But this reminds me of like an initiator right now. It's like what this reminds me of. He's way less like self-reliant. He's way less self-sufficient is what I mean. This is kind of like an initiator. So I think that's a really big nerf, and I think having a half duelist, half initiator is not good on a team. So with him being changed, we're going to see a lot more Waylay. 100%. So that's where we are with 11.08. To be honest, I think that some of the changes are valid, specifically to the characters that are just non-stop picked on every single map. I think that the meta goes in, not necessarily circles, but I think there's just trends. When there is an overpowered duelist or an initiator, you will see double initiator comps to enable them. When there is an overpowered controller or sentinel, you will see double controller and double sentinel comps to enable them. So it's just going to kind of keep going in circles there. where the part that we're in right now is going to be like the double controller and the double sentinel, with the things that are coming out. In regards to the utility changes and veto as a whole, I think that Riot didn't really do a good job of learning what happened with Teo. Teo was an agent where you could control something, you could recontrol something, and then you could group up and execute. And if you did the 3 steps right, you would never lose the round. It wouldn't be possible. And that's why G2 was so good. So adding an agent like Veto where you can just hit a button and it breaks all of the utility for you and there's no counterplay to it seems kind of like weird. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. I think it'll be fun and I think it'll change things up, but in terms of a grading aspect, if I'm grading it, I don't really see what this is. It has 2 of 3 chamber abilities and then a KO/Phoenix ult. I don't know. Kind of weird. But regardless, this is where we are. This is going to shake things up a lot. I'm excited for the change. I think meta shifts and stuff changing is fun. I will say that I think this is the best meta that I've played. As someone who streams the game and competes, I feel like I could run all different types of comps on all of the maps. And I don't like when I get boxed in, and I don't like when there's a god comp that you run on every map, and I don't like when there's a 4-piece comp that you run on every map. So that would be like Omen, Viper, Neon, Sova, right? That's your 4-piece right now, and then you just pick a Sentinel depending on the map that you're playing. Vice, Killjoy, Cypher, whatever it is. So definitely interesting. But the high pick rate agents getting changed up are good for the game. Again, I'm hoping to somehow, some way see some buffs come through for the agents that have been kind of forgotten or just almost left in the dust, and they just feel so old. Phoenix just feels so old compared to the broken ass utility in the game. Phoenix feels so old. I miss the old satchels on Raze. There's a lot of things that I miss that actually took skill and were good for variety, and not having it get sent down to just being able to pick one duelist because he's so good. The individuals make it good, and that's what makes the game fun. But that's all I got for the update today. The last thing that I'll shout myself out here with is I offer personal coaching, if you didn't know. I'm not going to scroll through all of these, but on my Twitter, you can just go see. I post a lot of my clients successes and when they're doing good, just to help everybody understand that there's a really good program and service that I offer here. A couple vouchers on Twitter as well. But yeah, you guys can go check that out if you want. I'm doing a 10% off everything deal. And if you are looking for a supplement to level you up, remember to go to neurooptima.com, get your flow state, get your supplements, use code TDOG for 10% off to support me. I appreciate everything. Thanks so much, guys. Got match breakdown videos coming out soon. I'll see you in the next one. TDOG out of here. Deuces.